Today I'm going to show you how to make beef bourguignon. This one's a proper classic. It's easy, simple and delicious. Let's have a look. So we start off with the usual prep for a French dish. 2 parts onion to 1 part carrot and celery. Using these 3 ingredients is just like making a little vegetable stock that forms part of the dish and brings some good base flavours to build upon. You don't have to cut it nicely, but if they're all a nice uniform shape, then you can fool people into thinking you are highly skilled. Chop a bit of garlic, and if you have trouble peeling it, then hit the thumbs up button to reveal my amazing kitchen hack. The rich, salty fatness of bacon enhances any dish, and we're not leaving it out of this one. For the beef, I'm using brisket, but you can use any cheaper cut as they generally benefit from long, slow cooking. This process lets the meat break down and become tender. More expensive cuts are reserved for steaks and quick cooking, as they are usually already more tender. You could braise a bit of ribeye and it would probably be great, but there's no point. It doesn't need a slow cook and you will get the same result or better with a cheaper cut. I don't mind leaving most of the fat on, it will render out and emulsify into the sauce. I'm cutting it fairly large to account for shrinkage during the cooking process. Okay, that's all the prep for now, so pop the bacon in a cold pan on medium heat to render out the fat. My more astute viewers may notice that I have it on a high heat, but I'm a professional, although my colleagues, my boss, everyone I've ever worked with might disagree. Cook it off until there's a bit of colour, then strain off the fat and don't clean the pan yet. Sprinkle salt all over the beef chunks, pat it dry for bonus points. Then turn up the heat until the pan's almost smoking. We're going to lose lots of heat when we add the beef, and we want the pan to remain hot so we can get a decent sear. I've used a little bit of the bacon fat for flavour. You may have to sear it in batches, just make sure each piece is in full contact with the pan and has a bit of space to itself. Just brown it off for a few minutes on each side. The darker the better, as long as it's not too black. I sometimes like to use this special technique I've developed. I'm using a piece of meat as a kind of beefy mop to wipe up any residue on the base of the pan before it gets too burnt. Once you're happy with the sear, set the beef aside and again, don't clean the pan. Into the pan with the veggies and a sprinkle of salt. For the viewer's entertainment, I've put together a tossing montage. If you're interested in more thrilling content like this, then don't forget to subscribe. Anyway, add the garlic and a couple of bay leaves. Once you start to get a good bit of colour and the veg starts to soften, add an enormous glug of wine. If you're trying to impress someone, then go ahead and get a half-decent Burgundy. But if you're just making a YouTube video and no one else is going to taste it, then buy the cheapest bottle that you can find. Reduce that by about 1/3, and in the meantime, here's a kitchen hack that actually works. If you're a modern-day millennial like me and you don't keep a ball of twine in the kitchen drawer, then plastic wrap is a great substitute. I'm using it to tie my herbs together so I don't have to fish them out individually at the end. The French call this a bouquet garni, which literally translates to bouquet garnish. This may sound fancy, but in this case, it is just a bit of time tied up with some plastic. Feel free to add a few sprigs of rosemary as well, but I was a bit tied for time. Throw everything into a large pot and add half a litre of beef or chicken stock and a dollop of tomato paste. Stir it all together, then lightly sprinkle the surface with flour and stir that in as well. I forgot to film this part, so here's some clever camera trickery. I'm just sprinkling a bit of flour over the surface. As you can see, you don't need much, just a teaspoon or so. Yeah, that'll fool them. Cut. Turn it off. Okay, cover the pan with tin foil and pop it in the oven at around 160 degrees. You could also use a slow cooker or Dutch oven. Leave it to braise for around 4 hours and check it every hour. You will see how it breaks down and softens up over time. The meat will be easy to mush with a pair of tongs when it's ready. Try a piece to make sure you're satisfied, then fish out the bay leaves and the tied herbs. Then adjust the seasoning accordingly. Now, it wouldn't be bourguignon without pearl onions and mushrooms. You'll have plenty of time to get these ready while the beef is braising. These are often sautéed at the start and braised with everything else, but I think it's nice to cook them at the end to use as a garnish and add an extra dimension of texture. This way they keep their flavour and structure and don't get lost in the dish. I've poured boiling water over the onions to help with peeling, but they are available pre-peeled and frozen. For the mushrooms, I like to pull out the stalks to use in stock, but you can leave them in or trim them. Keep them fairly large to account for shrinkage. One last thing to prep, and I don't care how reminiscent of the 80s this is, because I wasn't even born then, but parsley can help to brighten and balance a dish, especially a rich one like this. Quickly pick out the bigger stalks and chop over it a few times. Don't spend too long chopping or you'll just mash it into the board and lose all the flavour. Hot pan, oil, onions, salt. Sear it for a few minutes to get some really good colour, then add a glug of vinegar and a tiny sprinkle of sugar. The onions should be just soft enough to bite through easily. If you think they're too crunchy, just finish them off in the oven for a couple of minutes. Same idea with the mushrooms, hot pan and a quick cook. Some people argue that you should always season mushrooms at the end of cooking because salt draws out the moisture and causes them to boil. I find that it isn't really a problem if the pan is hot enough, but we might be getting into too much detail. Just throw some salt at them sometime before you eat them. When they are golden brown, add a knob of butter. I've put the butter in at the end so it doesn't burn in that raging hot pan. If you're still waiting for the beef to cook, you can always set your onions and mushrooms aside and reheat them together with some extra butter when you're ready to serve. And there you have it, Beefy B. Plate it all up and sprinkle with a bit of parsley snow. If you liked the video, please hit the thumbs up button and don't forget to subscribe for more culinary delights. Feel free to leave a comment, positive or negative. The YouTube algorithm does not discriminate. Thanks for watching.